What if the universe isn't made of matter at all, but of information? And what if awareness itself emerges wherever that information interacts? Physics is quietly uncovering something unsettling. For generations, we assumed the universe was made of matter, but the evidence is starting to tell a different story. Matter, space, and even time may be secondary, and the true foundation of reality is something far more subtle. Information, not metaphorical information, not human ideas, but real physical information, the kind that determines whether something exists at all. This isn't science fiction. This idea comes from one of the most respected physicists of the 20th century, John Archibald Wheeler. Wheeler was no mystic. He worked directly with Einstein. He trained Richard Feynman, and yet late in his career he reached a conclusion that still unsettles physics today. And he summed it up in 3 words. It from bit, meaning everything, every particle, every field, every force ultimately arises from bits of information. So how did physics arrive at such a strange idea? To understand that, we have to look at a problem science still cannot solve. Why reality has the structure that it does? Why does the universe settle into laws instead of chaos? Why does it evolve rather than stagnate? Why does observation matter at the deepest level of quantum mechanics? In classical physics, the universe is a machine that runs whether anyone is watching or not. But quantum physics shattered that picture. At the quantum level, particles don't have definite properties until they are measured. Before observation, they exist only as probabilities. Wheeler took this seriously, very seriously. He argued that the universe is not a finished object, but a participatory process. In his words, the universe is not something that simply exists. It is something that comes into being through interaction. In his 1989 paper, Wheeler proposed that information arising through interaction is more fundamental than matter. In this view, a particle doesn't have fully defined properties until it interacts with something else. Is it spinning one way or the other? Is it here or over there? Each interaction forces a definite outcome, and those outcomes, bit by bit, are what give the universe its structure. Physical reality takes shape through simple distinctions made during interaction. Is a particle spinning one way or the other? Is it detected here or there? Each interaction produces a definite outcome, and those outcomes taken together build the structure and the information that underlies reality. This leads to a radical implication. If information is fundamental, then the universe is not a dead collection of objects. It is a system that responds, records, and evolves through interaction. In other words, the universe behaves less like a machine and more like a process with memory. Now this is where the bigger picture comes into focus. Information that vanishes instantly has no effect. For information to matter, it has to persist in some way. It has to be carried forward, constrained, or remembered. That persistence is what we mean by memory. From this perspective, the universe doesn't just contain memory, its structure depends on it. The laws of physics themselves act like long-term memory. They preserve successful patterns and eliminate unstable ones. Cosmic evolution from particles to atoms, from stars to life, looks less like randomness and more like iterative learning. This doesn't require consciousness as humans experience it, but it does imply something crucial. The universe is not indifferent, it is selective. Wheeler stopped short of calling this consciousness, but other thinkers followed the implications further. The physicist Max Planck, founder of quantum theory, said, "I regard consciousness as fundamental. I regard matter as derivative from consciousness." And Erwin Schrödinger, another architect of quantum mechanics, wrote, "The total number of minds in the universe is 1. These weren't casual remarks. They were philosophical conclusions drawn after decades of wrestling with physics. What they were pointing to is something subtle, that mind and matter may not be opposites, but expressions of the same underlying reality. This is where panpsychism enters the conversation. Panpsychism doesn't say rocks think like humans. It says that the capacity for experience, however minimal, is a basic feature of reality, fundamental, just as mass and charge are fundamental. When you combine panpsychism with Wheeler's it from bit, a new picture emerges. A universe where interaction generates information structures matter, and increasingly complex systems give rise to richer forms of awareness, not by accident, but by necessity. Now consider this in light of the oldest philosophical question of all. Why is there something rather than nothing? If absolute nothingness constitutes zero information, then its natural polar opposite, the ultimate source of every conceivable possibility, would constitute an infinite capacity for information. However, such a source could not be physical, because anything physical is finite, measurable, and constrained. The ultimate source of all potential, therefore, must be non-physical in order to be more than nothing. This is where physics quietly brushes against metaphysics. If the universe arises through the generation of information, and if information only has meaning through interaction, then the universe can never be static. It must be continually updating itself, and every interaction leaves a trace. Every distinction adds to the universe's overall structure. In that sense, each moment genuinely matters, because each moment contributes something that wasn't there before. Consciousness, then, is not an accident in a meaningless cosmos. It is one of the ways the universe can know itself. This doesn't mean the universe is conscious in the way a human is, but it may point to something more fundamental, that awareness, at some level, is woven into reality itself, and that it is through this awareness that anything becomes real at all. Wheeler once imagined a future physicist looking back and concluding, I'm paraphrasing his idea, that every particle and every field of force derives its meaning and existence from bits of information. If this is right, then information, not matter, sits at the foundation of reality. And consciousness may be the universe's most refined way of generating and integrating that information. So the next time you ask whether the universe is conscious, the better question might be this: could a universe built from information ever be anything but? And if awareness emerges wherever information becomes complex enough, then your existence is not a glitch, it is part of the design, whether intentional, emergent, or something deeper still.